Wonderful. And if you can get your parents along, please get them along. Today, what we'll be talking about is relevant for parents and also for students. Good to see all smiling faces here. I'm also getting messages from a lot of parents. So we'll start in another 5 minutes. Thanks to all of you who have joined. We have kept all of you on mute. That will make the conversation more convenient and better for you. In case you have any question, you can also write us in a chat box. So we have our friends other than Homo sapiens also. Good to see that. Got a message from Rahul. Rahul ji, will just start. Hi, Rupal. Good evening, Rahul. Once we start, don't worry, we'll just fly like this aeroplane, or is that a rocket? Maybe we'll try to figure out what is real and what is apparent. Is it an aeroplane which looks like a rocket? Yes, Rupal, you can record this session, but we can share the YouTube link with you. So that will save you some effort. So we are already doing it for you. Another minute and we'll start. 60 seconds by our watch. Most welcome, Rupal. We'll get e-certificates after we solve and take something called asset super test, which we'll talk about. Yes, there are e-certificates for taking asset super test. For hearing me, no. So I think we'll start, Sudeshna. And thank you all for who joined us on time. Very good evening and namaste again. My name is Prakhar Ghildyal. I have been associated with educational initiatives for 5 years now, and I work as part of academic consulting team in EI. I take this privilege and welcome all of you to webinar on Asset Super Test to find out how well is your child actually learning. Actually learning? We'll find out. Millions of parents, educators, and students are trying to answer this question, not only in India, but everywhere around the globe. Let me tell you how this question took a clearer shape when we started thinking about this webinar, when we thought that we'll all come together and talk about this important and pertinent issue. I was discussing some real life cases with my colleague and friend Sudeshna Roy, who is with us right now. Sudeshna is a dear friend, an educator herself, and a parent of two lovely kids. So Sudeshna, can you share the question which we were discussing? And why is this question coming up now?
Yeah, sure, Prakhar. Thank you so much. It's really heartening to see how our questions, our experiences resonate with a lot of people and are now part of our tribe, actually. You know, as a parent, I can clearly tell you that things have really changed with this pandemic situation, the parent-child routine. I'm not even debating whether it's good or for bad, but I'm sure this has really tested the mettle of being a good parent or an innovative parent for all of us. Like I was sharing my experiences with my kids, it has been so different for learning during this period. So one thing that I think all the parents will connect with me is how we have been able to explore different ways of learning. The ways in which learning can happen have increased, right? So has screen time, it has also increased, but it has also given us a fresh and new perspective to learning. But with all of this coming in, there's one very important question that I think most parents are asking themselves. Is my child actually learning, or what is my child really learning? So I introduced, like all other parents, I also introduced my kids to certain things, YouTube's videos, live classes, Zoom sessions, and a lot of other things. And they benefited a lot from it, but I did not have a measure for it. So I was like, how does it work? And can we have more parents benefiting from the same? That was the question that was there in my mind. So that's why I was discussing this with you, Prakhar.
Indeed, a pertinent question, Sudeshna, and not only here, but in a lot of my student sessions, teacher interactions. This is something which you rightly said resonates with all of us. And I know that I have just the right person to answer this today. I'm delighted to have Mr. Sridhar Rajagopalan as our guest today, who will be helping us have a better grip on the idea of learning and share certain practices which can help all of us. Sridhar is the co-founder of EI and presently mentoring EI as a chief learning officer. Sridhar has worked with private schools, government schools, development agencies, policy-making institutes, and developed and executed large-scale assessments both in India and a lot of other countries. Without much ado, I'll request Sridhar sir to share his thoughts about the same. Welcome aboard, Sridhar sir.
Thank you very much, Prakhar, and welcome to all participants. Thank you very much for joining us today, and we hope this is an interesting and useful session for you. I'm just going to charge my computer for a moment. Sorry about that. So I think while we are going to talk about learning, I want to start by, just asking how all of you are doing. We all know that COVID is a difficult time, as Sudeshna said, and it has, there are multiple levels of challenges. I mean, many researches show that socio-emotional learning, that is for children to, be in a good spirit, for them to be at home all the time is probably one of the most difficult things. It's bad enough for adults. We know how it can be for children. So that is the first thing. I hope all of you are doing fine, and I hope that we will keep this theme through the discussion that we will have today. So let's come to this point of how well children are learning and how we can try and get some answers to a question like this. I'm going to start by introducing two friends, Meenakshi and Rahul, both of whom are students in class 6. And let's go through this journey with Meenakshi and Rahul. Both of them are quite upset about COVID, very unhappy that they are having to, sit at home and not able to go around and play and interact with their friends in school. And this is not something that a few people in India or in a few cities are having. We know that COVID has disrupted, according to some accounts, 90% of schools all over the world. 1.2 billion children are struggling with this. And what this is doing is that it has made life not only difficult for children, but for parents. And we are all trying to adjust to something which is completely new. The World Health Organization has recommended this, and talking about safety and well-being, I wanted to start with this slide, which is that they say that adults should be active for at least 30 minutes daily, and children should have at least physical activity for 1 hour per day. Now, this is not easy. It can be challenging. It may not always be possible, but this is what we should try to do. There are studies that show that this kind of physical activity is needed even for mental growth. And so it is really important for every child and for every parent to take care of this. And maybe if we can do these things, we actually come out of COVID stronger and learn something from this. COVID is definitely having an impact on learning. I mean, almost anybody who assesses learning, this is research from the US, but in India, in educational initiatives, we do a lot of assessments. And it is very well known that whenever schools close, and then normally you have summer holidays and then schools reopen, it is very well known that during this period, there is a slight decline in learning. In fact, they say that the decline in mathematics is little more than language. And so these kinds of things have been calculated for different subjects. Now, it is very clear what people are saying is that COVID is causing a COVID slide. And that slide is actually more for smaller children. That is, children in grade 3 have a greater slide. The slide is less for a grade 8 or grade 9, but even there it is, the slide is there. And this is not surprising because this has become not only like an extended break, it has become an unplanned break where teachers did not have a plan. It's not that we knew this was going to happen, and we do not even know when it is going to start. So this is a reality which we have to be aware of, and we have to see what we can do to minimize the loss because of this. And this is one of the things that we will look at as we go along. Now, screen time was mentioned, and here is Meenakshi, who is kind of saying that screen time for children in the age group of 5 to 15 years has shot up by 100%, and she's not very happy about it. She's happy about it because she connects with her friends and teachers and learns something, but she's also not happy about sitting there and being in front of the class. And Rahul, who's mischievous, says that he has an answer to that, and you can see what his answer is. But jokes apart, it is a fact that children are spending a lot more time in front of a computer screen, and this has become the way that they are learning. One of the things that we are going to see here is the difference between this kind of, what looks like learning and distinguishing this from are they really learning. Like Rahul says, if in case I actually switch off my computer or my mic, that's one way. But even if I'm sitting in front of the computer and my mind is turned off, how do we know? So how much is a child really learning is something that everybody, parents as well as teachers, are struggling with. One thing that we have to understand is that learning is of different types. I said 2 slides ago that there is a dip learning or what we call a learning loss. But I want to introduce you to what we call EI's tree of learning. And I'll just explain this, why we say that all learning is not the same. So some part of learning is what we call core learning, like the trunk of a tree. So, the trunk of a tree is what supports the whole tree. It's what stays, it's what grows year after year. Even if the leaves fall off in winter, as long as the trunk is there, the tree can grow. That is core learning, and I'll explain what that is. Then there is supporting learning, which is like the branches of the tree. So these are not as critical as the core. If I cut a branch, it is fine. The tree will still survive and grow. And finally, I have the peripheral learning, which is like the leaves. So what is this core learning, supporting learning, and peripheral learning? There are some things that we learn which are absolutely core ideas. So if I learn basic concepts in class 4, in class 5, whether it's in language or maths, these are not things that the children can forget when they come to the next class. It is like a tree or like the foundation of a house on which you have to build in order to move to the next level. And that is what we call core learning. Supporting learning, like the branches of a tree, are those which are not as core as the main learning, but they are important to know. But after a year, if you forget it, it is okay. And then there are certain facts which are minor facts, which we call peripheral learning, which is, like you learn about Roman numerals in school, or you might learn a particular date. Now, these are not so important. One of the challenges in our school education is sometimes these three get mixed up. If I open the textbook, there is no mark that this is core learning and this is supporting learning and this is peripheral learning. Good teachers know this, but it is very important to realize what we have written here, which is that in any kind of a break or a pandemic or holidays, if children lose peripheral learning, there is no problem. In fact, peripheral learning is not meant to be remembered and learned and built on. They are peripheral things that you learn because it's part of what you're doing, but it is not so critical as you go ahead. However, we cannot ensure to lose any core learning because that is what can affect the child when the child moves to the next class. One more important thing to understand here is what we call the mechanics of learning versus real learning. Now, what is the mechanics of learning? Mechanics of learning is those things that look as if we are learning. If in case I am listening to a teacher and a teacher is teaching, this looks like learning. If a student is taking notes, this looks like learning. If I'm answering questions from the textbook, this looks like learning. It may be learning, but we don't really know how much the child is learning. This is the mechanics of learning. One of the things you have seen in something like a COVID is that a lot of action has happened towards the mechanics of learning. Everybody has started live classes. Everybody has started YouTube videos. But we have to understand that different from mechanics of learning is what we call real learning. And real learning examples are when students are able to apply what they have learned to something real life. When students perform well in independent tests, we'll talk about this test called PISA, which is an international test. We know the JEE. So whether a child is learning really well is checked when you actually assess whether the child is able to absorb that learning, has been able to apply it, has been able to understand it, has been able to integrate it, with things that they are learning in the different subjects. That is why we say learning is not a place, because initially we thought before COVID, people said, okay, my child is going to school and that's where they must be learning. But learning is not a place. Learning is an activity to the extent that I can be doing it online, in any place. But learning is not only an activity either. And real learning is what is retained when the child has completed the lesson or completed the year. And that is why we say learning is an outcome. And an outcome is something that you have to measure or that you see at the end of it, usually through an assessment. So just the important idea here is that there are things that look like learning and there is real learning, and we have to detect them and know that there is a difference between them. So how do we know if a child is really learning? And I'm going to here come back to Meenakshi and Rahul. Both Meenakshi and Rahul attend live classes. Both of them see the YouTube lectures. Both of them have taken notes from the class. But can we say from that that both of them are learning equally well? If in case I am able to also do something and Meenakshi is taking a regular assessment, every week she is going through something. It could be in English, it could be in maths, it could be in science. And somebody is able to see from this, even Meenakshi herself, has she understood it? Why did she get that question wrong? What was the point that she missed in this particular thing? The same thing that Rahul is doing, but without this test, Rahul does not really know. His parents and his teachers don't really know what he is learning. Remember that in most schools, they believe that assessments should be done regularly, but because of COVID, assessments are not possible. So that is a key, and I'm just going to mention 3 things here. Good assessments, I'm not even just saying assessments, but good assessments are the first thing that are critical to ensure or to know whether learning is happening. The second thing is that this must be regular. It cannot be, especially in a COVID situation, it can no longer be once in 3 months or once in 4 months. Even if it is not like an exam, we don't want to create pressure. It doesn't have to be a large test, but something that children are doing from time to time, doing it regularly. Regularity of practice, every parent knows, every sportsman knows, every musician knows, regularity is important, and this is equally true for true learning. And the third thing is, where do I stand? I mean, am I doing very well, better than most other children of my age? Am I doing okay? Where do I stand? We call that benchmarking. So if these 3 things are there, if I have a good assessment, if I'm doing it regularly, and I get a picture of where I stand, then I know whether I'm learning or not. Then you know if your child is learning or not, and you can actually take action based on that, which we will come to. This is what we are offering through a new offering called the Asset Super Test. Most of you must be knowing about Asset. Asset is India's largest test done by thousands of schools across the country at the same time once every year. But the Asset Super Test is something that is built especially for COVID, especially for children and parents, children to do from their home once every week and to understand how well they are really learning in a mode without pressure, where they can take it from the comfort of their home, not spend more than 30-35 minutes, do a few questions, but do it regularly. So that is what we're going to talk about, and I'm going to share details about it. I'm sure there must be questions in your mind. Please put them in the chat or send them to the phone number that was shared, and we'll be happy to answer them in the last 15 minutes. You should know that EI is India's leading student assessment expert. Our asset tests are done across the country and even elsewhere in the world. We have an assessment called detailed assessment, which is a subject-wise assessment done with schools. And many of you must be knowing of MindSpark, which is one of the best tested educational softwares, which has been shown to have extremely powerful learning. EI has also worked with Google to conduct a very, very large assessment in 18 states across the country. And another study that EI did was on the cover of the India Today magazine, again talking about the quality of children learning and how well they're really learning. So over the last 20 years, EI has different responses. Is 1,000 million or 100 crores. So EI has 5 billion student responses, which give deep insights into the way the children learn. And that is the kind of insight that is coming into the Asset Super Test that can tell us how children are learning today. So let's just take one example. I'm going to show you a few questions in this presentation, about 3 or 4. And I'm just giving you one example here to show you that why do we say good assessment, or how is this different from a normal assessment that everybody has? Even the live class that you do must be offering assessments. Everybody talks of assessments. The questions at the back of the textbook or the back of the chapter, there are questions there. But the difference with the EI assessments and the super test is that you can see the first question here, which says, which of the following is an obtuse angle? And this is what we call a straight question, a straightforward question. Children have learned this. They know that more than 90 degrees, they look at the figure, they recognize it. An obtuse angle is always drawn in this way in the textbook, and they answer this correctly. Do we think they have learned it? Yes, we think they have learned it. But suppose I ask the same question in a slightly different way. When I say which angle has the greatest degree measure? Now, the correct answer is B, because this is the one that has the greatest turn that is here. But a lot of children say it is C because they think that these lines are long. In fact, more than 50% of children answer C, even though they could answer the first question correctly. So this is where we come into understanding. Has the child really understood? Now, things like angles you have to use in a lot of topics as you go along. All of trigonometry that we learn depends on this. It is used a lot in science. It's not only in maths. It's used a lot in geography. When we talk of latitudes and longitudes, it's all about angles. So if you don't really understand degree measure, you will have difficulty and we think the child is struggling. It's actually simply because of the learning that happens here. So this is an example of a good question, and good questions make good assessments. We are not saying this first question is a bad question. So even these kind of questions are there in the ACID super test. But usually school tests and other tests have only these kind of questions. And that is how ACID super test offers something which is unique for parents and children. Now, one thing we have to understand, and sometimes people say, yes, all this is true, and we understand that these are good things, but our schools are not like that. India is not doing like that. What only matters is the board exam, and the board exam does not have these kind of thinking questions. It has only those kind of textbook questions, and that is why the children who go to the tuition class do the best. But this is not true, and this is changing a lot. India has signed up for this test called PISA that I mentioned. PISA stands for Program for International Student Assessment. And it's a test where 70, 80, 90 countries around the world do the test. And children are picked up from different parts of the country. And if the children do poorly, then India's rank comes very poorly. So India participated in 2009 and actually performed very, very poorly. We ranked 73 out of 74 countries. So India is again participating, supposed to be in 2021. It may be postponed because of COVID to 2022. But it's not just the PISA, the board exam is changing. A lot of change is being planned in India, mainly because of the new education policy. The new education policy actually says that schools should have examinations in grades 3, 5, and 8. And these examinations are not supposed to be like pressure examinations, but they are to check basic learning outcomes, core concepts, knowledge about national and local curricula. It says the focus will be to have less emphasis on input and greater emphasis on output concerning the desired learning outcomes. All this sounds exactly like what I just told you about the ACID super test, but the NEP 2020 came less than a month ago, and EI has been saying this for 20 years. So the whole focus is not to pressurize the child, not to make the child memorize, not to focus on the textbook, but to focus on the understanding of the child. So with this, I'm going to come 2 or 3 questions. I'm just keeping track of the time. So I'm going to quickly show you some questions to give you more examples of this, but also to show you data here to see how children are actually performing. So in class 3, I'm going to take the first example from class 3 because that is where we said learning losses can be higher in the lower classes. One way to ask a question is, which hand in a clock moves the fastest? And children learn the answer and they give the answer here. But suppose you actually ask a question where you say that we reached the zoo at 2:45 p.m. Which of these classes shows the correct time? Now you will see that the correct answer is A because it's showing 2:45, but only 13% of children answer this. And most people give a wrong answer here. Now, what this shows is that children are not understanding the concept but doing this based on a mechanical learning. I'll just go to a second example. Another simple example where the textbook might ask you, what is happening when the Earth takes 365 and a quarter days, and you expect children to say rotation or revolution. Correct answer is revolution, and they learn that and they give that answer. But suppose we ask them something that they have to think and answer. What causes the moon to rise and set? Now, this is something that checks for understanding. And the correct answer again is the Earth's rotation, but a lot of children will give the wrong answer to this. So these kinds of insights, this is from class 6. So these kinds of insights can help children, parents, as well as teachers to focus on learning rather than simply what is in the textbook. A third example, I'm not going to read the question, but the concept is about perimeter. And what happens here is that children learn formulas, as we all know. And so they learn the formula and they're able to apply the formula in a certain way. This is also important. And we cover those, like I said, a test like the SUPERTEST has questions like this also. However, if you look at the question on the right, it says what happens to the perimeter of a rectangle when it is cut into two identical rectangles. And again, we see that many children haven't really understood the concept of perimeter, but they are able to sometimes know the formula. So when you have questions like this, these help to actually check if learning has happened. Again, I want to repeat, it's not that the questions on the left, it's not the textbook questions are not important or the children don't need to know that. So what SUPERTEST does, it has about 20 to 25 to 30% of questions which are textbookish questions, which are the kind of questions that are there in the textbook and used to come in the exams and will definitely happen for some time. But more and more exams are going to focus on questions like this, which require the child to understand. And those kinds of questions are a major focus of the SUPERTEST. One good thing about questions like this is that children can reason it out. Very often we find bright children who don't like to, just work hard and keep reading the book. And they say that, how do I don't want to memorize this. And my friends memorize it and do well in the exam. We have seen that children like that are able to reason out these questions and answer them. And so it actually helps children who are thinking about things and understanding it, even if they have not learnt up things by rote or learnt up from the textbook. So basically what we say is that good questions are not useful only for testing. We think that exams are for testing, and that is why we are able to do something like SUPERTEST in the home, because we say, look, you have to think and answer the question. We are not putting you under time pressure. There's enough time. The test has only 20 or 25 questions, but you have to think and answer. Research shows that when children if you tell a child something, if you say, okay, this is the meaning of photosynthesis, or this is the difference between living and non-living things, or this is something in electricity in the higher classes, the learning is much less than when you ask them such a question and they have to answer it in a test. So the whole point here is that good questions can actually cause learning, because children think about it. Later on, they see how did they perform in the test, they get the results. And these questions can show you what are the wrong ideas, we call them misconceptions, the children have. It gives you specific feedback for your child. It is not just giving you a score, but it is telling you question-wise, skill-wise, what the child has learned or not. Plus, we will talk about revising and revisiting and the power of practice that we spoke about. So this is why I want to emphasize that this is not only an assessment, this is actually a way to improve learning, and it's a way to improve learning that focuses on core concepts that children need to know. So what are these learning blocks? I'm now going to actually show you screens from the SUPERTEST. You can also go to the website. We'll be sharing the link, or search for SUPERTEST and you will find it. But I'm going to show you screens and how it works and how the principles that I just described to you are put into the product and are reflected in the product. Right? So this is what it looks like when you start. So you can just go to the site, you can register, sign up, get an account, and then start. You'll get a user ID and password, and you can start working with the thing. Like mentioned here, you don't need to download an app. You can access it from any device. You can do it from a laptop or a desktop or from a mobile phone. So it's very convenient to use and easy to start off. Now, one of the things that is very powerful and important for parents and teachers is that the student can select the test that they want to do. Tests are open every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and the child can do one test every week. Sometimes parents ask us, why can't we do more tests? But the main reason is that we don't want the child to. So a lot of research also shows that regularity, which is broken up, that means I'm doing this at a certain frequency, is what really helps in learning. Compared to that, if in case I say, okay, I'm just going to simply do, like sometimes, children do, we've all done, I think when we were small, which is holiday homework is there, and then in the last week we finish all this. Fine, we do it. But the best learning happens when you do that work regularly, divided over time. So one of the screens that you have in Asset SUPERTEST is that you get a list of tests for the different subjects, English, maths, and science. That is what is shown in these the different colored circles here. And you can choose the topic for the particular class. There are lots of topics, in fact, more than 52, which is the number of weeks in the year. And you also have access to tests from the previous class and the next class. So a child may be in class 6, but then he can go and do a class 5 test if you feel that he is at that level, or they can do a class 7 test. So you can choose your own test. There is a schedule, and you can go by that schedule, which we recommend. But if in case the school or the child has learned a particular topic, you can choose the test you want to do, and simply start off the test. Of course, like I said, you can start the test on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. That means if you do this on Wednesday, it will tell you that your test will open 2 days from now. So the test can be done in the Friday, Saturday, Sunday window at any time. You can also see the past tests that you have done, and I will just show you that screen. 20 to 25 questions that, like I said, a mix of questions that check for understanding and a mix of questions that are more textbook-like questions. They look simple, but you'll be surprised when you get the results that they require the child to understand an answer. So, for example, in this question, it looks like a simple question, but you'll be surprised that many children think that only some of these are triangles. So, because they think that some of them are put in a different orientation, and so they are not triangles. So this is a test that is looking at each of these tests in a particular topic, and it kind of shows how you're proceeding. The child can jump between questions if they want to revisit a question or mark a question. So all these features are there, making it easy for the child to do the test in any medium, whether it's a phone or a laptop. Once you have done the test, this is an important point. We talked about practice. So it is actually recommended that if in case a child does not score a full score in a test, and usually they won't, so it's only a 20 or a 25 mark test, and it's common for children to score 12 or 16 or 15 or 18. Once you complete a test, the test is always open for you to retry the test. So both during the week or later, or even 2 months later, or before a test, before a school exam, or any situation like that, you can go back to any past test, and there is a button that says retry. And if you click on retry, you get the test again. Of course, it's the same questions that you have done, but the research shows that it is recommended that every child should attempt the test at a certain gap, again, roughly once a week, in a way that they finally score a full score in that test. And by the way, the system records all of this. It takes your first score is the one that it considers, but it will show you that this was your score in the first attempt, this was your score in the second attempt. Maybe you attempted 4 times, it shows you the best result. So all of this basically encourages a child to practice. And we might think that the child got it wrong, next time he'll definitely get it right because he knows the right answer. But we find that if there is a learning gap, the child actually does not do that. And doing it again helps to get over this learning gap. And often children will make the same mistake, but then 2 or 3 times, and remember, they are answering it under test conditions. It's not like they are just revising it and getting the answer. They have to answer, and later on they are told what their score is. So this reattempting or practice is something that is scientifically added because it helps the child learn the concept better. Benchmarking, we spoke about benchmarking. So the report that is shown, I'm going to show you in either of these screens. This is what I mentioned to you, that it shows you all the different attempts. It shows you the best attempt that you have here in yellow. And you can see your score and your percentile performance, if appropriate, your accuracy. And you can actually scroll down and see this for every question. So what the percentile performance shows is what this is showing here, which is it tells you how you have done compared to children of your class across the country. So this also tells you whether a particular question was easy or difficult. Because if I get a difficult question wrong, okay. If I get an easy question wrong, then I have to pay even more attention. So this is a simple looking report. It's easy to understand. It has the questions, one can scroll down, but it actually has a lot of powerful information that if a child and a parent see it, it literally pinpoints what concept of that topic the child has not understood or needs to practice more. And then, of course, the certificates. So every month, children receive certificates. They must complete one test per week. That means every weekend, they should complete a test. If you do not complete a test, if you skip a test, if you miss a test, you do not get the certificate. But if you complete every test, then you're assured of a participating certificate. But if you have done well, you will get superstar and achiever certificates. And like we have seen with all our offerings, whether it is Sparkies in MindSpark or the certificates in Asset, we know that this is a huge motivation for children to do well. And they can actually click on this. Like I said, this is given at the end of every month. So you complete 4 or 5 tests in the month. And at the end of it, you get a certificate based on your performance. And the certificate, like I said, depends on how the child has performed. It's an e-certificate. It can be downloaded. It can be shared on Facebook or other social media. So this is something that we actually encourage and recommend that children aim to get the best certificate. And like I said, as long as you have attempted all the tests, you get a participation certificate. And children who get a participation certificate try the next time to get a certificate at the next level and the next level and so on. So this is something that we think is important and helps children, keep them motivated while they are also learning in doing something like the Asset SUPERTEST. So just to kind of give you all the details about the test, it is for children of grades 3 to 10. It's available in English, Maths, and Science. We're going to be adding other subjects like Hindi and Social Studies in the future. It's currently in English. It's a 30 to a 40-minute test. Some of the tests in the lower classes are 30 minutes, and the tests in the higher classes are 40 minutes. Only 20 to 25 minutes questions per test. So we do not want this to be either pressure or something that seems like a burden to the child. It's one test per week. So there's a frequency. You can choose the test, but you have one test per week. We give you a set of the tests which are already there in the schedule, but parents have full flexibility to change the schedule if they want. A child cannot change the test. You need something called a parent pin to be able to change it, but you can use the parent pin and change the test. Objective type multiple choice questions, because these are the ones that help you to identify the weaknesses really well. You can either take a basic package of 4 tests or a premium package of 52 tests. And these tests are taken from home, and obviously they are done online. This is the link that is there, which we will share with you after this also. So the important ideas that we had was that in a time like COVID, we already talked about the fact that we don't want to increase the pressure on children. We want something which is friendly, taken at home, not taking too much time. We talked about screen time, so the entire Asset SUPERTEST is scheduled for 30 to 40 minutes per week, and a lot of children complete it in 20 to 25 minutes. So if you understood all the concepts well, it's not that you need even the 30, 35, 40 minutes. That's one more reason why we restrict to only one test per week, though they can practice other tests. So we're very conscious that the screen time should not be exceeded. Like we said, Friday to Sunday, you get both your actual score, question-wise, what mistake you have made, and your benchmarking score. Reports are instantly available the moment the testing window completes. The testing window is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then you get e-certificates with marks at the end of the month. Right. So what we see as SUPERTEST as is deeper learning without the pressure of exams and the power of good assessments. So a lot of children have, so this is something we have just launched last week. So we've had students who've taken it and we've got their feedback, and almost every child has basically liked the questions and the test, and that is the comment we've been getting from most parents also. So this is not something that is, we do not say that live classes or YouTube videos or other methods of learning should not be done, but we are saying that if you only do those, then you don't actually know how the child is learning. You don't know how the child is doing compared to what children of their age are supposed to do. This is not a comparison. We are not comparing child A but with child B, but we are comparing a child with the performance of children of that age across the country. This is called benchmarking. This is what happens in all assessments internationally, what we call a percentile score. So it really helps a child improve based on this feedback. Yeah. So with that, I am almost at the end of my presentation, and we will open up for questions. The regular price for the tests are 600 rupees for the 4-pack test and 200 rupees for the 52-pack test. But there is a coupon code that you should note down, because this is available only for those who have participated in the seminar, and it is going to be valid till this next test, which is Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's a steep reduction that we are offering for webinar participants. So we welcome you to try this out and take the Asset Super Test and share your feedback after that. And we hope that it will help you to give your child regular practice while also giving you feedback on how they are doing and understanding how they are learning. So I'm going to either keep this screen or the screen, but we can close at this point in terms of the presentation. You can write your questions to the number that was given at the beginning, which is this number. You can either message to this number, or you can send it on the chat. And please, it's open for questions now. Prakhar, Sudeshna.
Right. Yeah, thank you so much, Sridhar. It was really quite insightful, and I'm sure parents have got an understanding of why good assessments are important and regular testing is important. I have been getting a few questions from our audience. I'll take a few of them. So one group of parents are really worried about their children not being serious about academics or activity, the thing that we have been seeing as an outcome of virtual learning, maybe. So that is something they want you to address, that how do we cater to that?
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a very, very important question and a very valid question. I did not talk about Meenakshi and Rahul again, but the reason we had Rahul there was precisely because of that. Rahul is a bright child. He's like really intelligent, and his parents say that this intelligence shows up in everything except when he sits down to study. So absolutely, I mean, this is something that I think we have all experienced. Maybe some of us were like that when we were small. The part of the reason we actually believe is because of the way that our education system has become, and lots has been written about this. All of you must have seen 3 Idiots, which is about college, but the same ideas apply. So a lot of the time children lose interest because the whole process is very mechanical. And if I talked about the tree of learning and the peripheral learning, if you put a lot of peripheral facts to the child, if you say learn all these things, if I say name 3 things made out of wood, and you say you must name those which are in the textbook, I know it's an extreme example, but we've seen schools do that. So children tend to lose interest, and those are the two antidotes to this are something that we have tried to use for 20 years, one of which is interesting questions. So every question requires you to think, and not only that it requires you to think, but if you have not mugged up, memorized, learnt by heart the thing in the textbook, you can still answer the question by simply thinking and reasoning through the question. So children like this. There have been lots of examples where parents, teachers have said that, this child was very naughty, this child we thought was a slow learner, all kinds of things. And then they say, why are they doing so well in the asset test? And the reason for that was the child is intelligent, but the child did not like, having to sit in a class and do this way and so on. So interesting questions is one. And the second thing is the practice that I talked about, the fact that you're doing this once a week. So you're kind of telling the child that, you must do this test once a week. Now, if you do well in that test, okay, then I want, and well means there's a score also, but there is a percentile also, which means that you know how the child answered on those questions, but you also know how the child did compared to other children from other schools, but all the children of your class. So that is, I think, a way that gets, and children also like that deal. They say that, okay, fine, this one test and I'm going to understand. And yes, if I have done poorly, then I understand that I have to go through the questions carefully, understand the concepts. And if any of you have, when you see the test, you will realize that the questions are such that are really the ones that would help them learn. So Sudeshna, I hope that answers the question that to bring about the seriousness, interesting questions, not too much of mechanical remembering kind of a thing, and some kind of regularity which is imposed by a system like this. Remember, we said that you get a certificate only if you don't miss a test. So all of this is designed for that kind of a child who says, I just want to.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Sridhar. The next couple of questions. One parent is worried about how do you train students for attempting reasoning type questions. And one parent has a question about whether MCQs can test real learning. So I thought these were related. So.
Yeah. So both are very good questions. Let me start with the first one about developing the skills of reasoning. So frankly, the kind of questions that, so we've always found that it is good questions invoking thought, where the child has to think to answer the question, that develops reasoning. So this is something that we can do in real life also, so even when we are talking to children, when we talk about skills in science, where we say hypothesis formulation. So one example I take is that, okay, suddenly the light goes off in your room. So now what happened? Was there a fuse? Was there something that just went off here? Was it a power cut in the whole region? And by reasoning out these 3 or 4 things, you can answer that question. This is an example from a real life situation. But if in case you're helping your child with geography or science or maths, focus more on, Richard Feynman used to say that suppose you tell me that this is the definition of this kind of an animal, you say this is a carnivore, I just learned the term. But if you tell me what it means, what is the relationship, what is the connection with something else, then I've learned some patterns which will stay with me even if I forget the term that you made me learn. Similarly, if I understand, so we say that children are doing, say, LCM, or they are doing equations. Now, one of the questions children have is, why am I learning this? So some of these kinds of discussions actually help the child in most subjects, whether it is English, whether it is science, whether it is maths. There is a reasoning, there is a logic, there is a building of the subject from class to class. And sometimes we ourselves have to read and understand that, because we think, okay, what is there in English? I have to just write this. But it's not like that. How can you express yourself powerfully? How will I write this differently, whether I'm writing it to a government official or to a group of students, for example. So the best way to develop reasoning questions is to have systems of good questions, or to use these kinds of reasoning examples when dealing with children. Coming to the question on multiple choice questions. So frankly, whether a question is multiple choice or short answer or single word or a long answer question does not make it a good question or a bad question. And if the question is that, can I test real understanding with multiple choice? Please, just pick up any one of these tests, or we will share this presentation to all of you who are here. Look at the examples that are given here. Look at the example I showed you about angles. So you cannot answer that question unless you have understood it correctly. By the way, one thing that we often do as part of our research, we have something called an asset question a day, where children write explanations, which, by the way, is a feature that we are going to add in the asset SUPERTEST. So is not just asking the child to answer the question, but to ask them to write in 2 or 3 lines why they chose this answer. So if you take a multiple choice question which is designed well, remember it has tempting answers as the wrong answers. And then you ask a child, why did you say C? I think B is right. So multiple choice questions have actually been shown to be much more powerful to really check for understanding, because it is presenting you with other options. And if you are confused, those options are developed in such a way, and that's what you saw in the percentages we showed you, and it's there for hundreds of questions. The options are developed in such a way that the children who have not understood it well will choose one of the wrong options. So multiple choice can be, so first of all, like I said, you have to have good questions. If you have bad multiple choice questions, they will not check for understanding. But multiple choice questions are very good for actually testing the real understanding, because not only do they have a scientifically developed question, but they also have scientifically developed options.
Thank you. The next few questions are related to ACID SUPERTEST as such. So one question is, will the topics be allied to CBSE curriculum or a particular curriculum? So if you can answer
questions,
that.
yes, the questions, yes, when you register for the ACID SUPERTEST, you can choose your board. For now, we have ICSE and CBSE, and we are going to add the other boards. But if you belong to a state board, for example, we have found that if you select the CBSE board, since, as I explained, the questions relate to concepts. So if you see any of the topics, whether it is family or it is angles or it is polynomials, you will find that the topics themselves are relevant to all the boards, and you are checking for understanding. When you look at, it's like a test that a student takes after finishing school. You know, children of all the different boards have to take that test to get admission to college. So yes, the answer is that today we have a selection for CBSE and ICSE, but we recommend that if you're in a state board, you can select the CBSE. If you are in an international board, you can select the ICSE. But even there, you will find that all of these questions check for understanding, and you will find use in taking that test, whatever board your child goes to.
Right. Also, Sridhar, parents want to know that how will they get to know what test is coming up? What are the chapters, topics to be tested?
Yes, so you can simply, the moment you enter the ACID SUPERTEST, the first screen actually shows you the list of tests. You can scroll down; it will show you the tests for the entire year, and you can, like I said, also switch to a lower class or a higher class and see the tests of that year. So you can see all the tests that are scheduled. You can make changes if you want. You will see the topics and you will see the subject, which is English, Maths, or Science that it belongs to. So yes, this is very easy to see. We recommend that as far as possible, you stick to the topic that is scheduled, but you are absolutely welcome to change it if you have a reason to change it. This is very easy. It's what you get on the very first screen.
Okay. Also, so Sridhar, if you are talking about 52 tests, it is during that annual academic year or the calendar year that we are talking about?
Correct. So we are talking of 52 tests. So, you know, if you sign up in August, you sign up in September, you sign up in October, at one time during the year, you can change the child's class. So one time in the year. So typically, if your child goes to the next class on April 1st, then either in March or April, you can switch the child. If the child was in class 6 and went to class 7, you can switch it to class 7. Remember, when the child was in class 6, you could already choose questions from class 5, 6, and 7. And now when you move the child to class 7, you can choose questions from class 6, 7, and 8. So yes, it is 52 tests. It doesn't matter when you start. It doesn't matter whenever you switch your class, you will be able to continue for that particular class.
So if I've done 30 tests and I change the academic year, I'll get the remaining tests for that year, right? From 6 to 7. Right.
Yes.
Okay, great. Can international children be charged at the same rate as India? Is something that parents want to know. What is the charge for international students?
That's a good question. And like you know, we have just launched ACID SUPERTEST. However, our other products like ACID, Detailed Assessment, MindSpark, some of which are available to parents, some of which are available to students, are used across the world. I mean, they are used a lot in the Middle East, but they are used in Africa in many countries. There are children in the US, who take the test. And we do have local prices for children who are taking the test in different regions. So yes, it depends on the region. In some cases, it is a rupee. So yeah, the prices could be different in different regions. We are focusing a lot on the Indian students for now, but especially if I know that no child from India would be on a holiday in any of these countries now because of COVID, but that happens with the other products. And yes, these are available across the country, and it is available at different prices in the different countries. So the Gulf rate for asset is not the same as the India rate. And this is true for all EI products.
Also, supposing I am a parent who wants my child to take test only in maths and science and not in English, is that possible that I subscribe to only 2 subjects?
So currently we are offering a subscription of 52 tests. And like I said, we have more than 52 tests in the list. So for example, if you picked up only the tests of English and whatever maths and science, then you would probably be able to still do almost 45 tests, in just those 2 subjects. So we do not, as of now, offer packages, only an English package, only a maths package, or only a maths and science package. Partly because of this, because we are offering a large number of tests and we are actually increasing that number. But we also do this because we recommend that, you do not, at least, like I said, you can choose. You can do a maths test and again a maths test and again a maths. I'm not preventing that. So, and remember that with the previous class and the next class, literally you can do all maths and science if you wanted. But we do recommend that there is a mix used here. But yes, we do not, as of now, offer packages for the different subjects. We may do it in the future, but the flexibility and the number of tests allow you to configure the test the way you want it.
Okay, something very, very important for parents is what about the doubts on the solutions for the questions in the SUPERTEST? How will those be addressed if my child has not performed well?
Yes, that's a very good question. One of the things that is being added to the SUPERTEST is an ability for a child to write an explanation for every question, and children who give good explanations, get a kind of bonus points, which help them towards the thing at the end of the month. And these best explanations will be shown to children along with the report. This is a feature that is being added very, very soon. However, till that feature is added, if you have this situation, please feel free to email us and or contact us in any way, and our team is ready to, or call us in the center, and the team is available to provide these explanations. However, this is going to be available pretty soon, so you will actually have a good explanation for the questions in the test that the child has done.
Right. I have a few questions related to teaching learning as such, where parents want to know that teachers and students, they need to complete the syllabus on one hand, the curriculum for that year, and there is the testing and checking of learning on the other hand. How are they supposed to balance this in the whole process?
So, one of the things we talk about with, we talk about formative and summative assessments. So a summative assessment is an assessment. The old model is that, I study, I have my term, and at the end I have a test. Now, not only because of online, but because of the use of technology, use of computers, it is possible to actually integrate the process of teaching, learning, and testing. And that is what a tool like Asset SUPERTEST can be used very effectively for. So if I'm teaching a particular topic, or a child is learning a particular topic, but you find that because of a certain strength, because of something the child has done, because of what the child has read, this child has actually learned this topic really well. And sometimes the reverse, which is that the child is finding this particular topic difficult. So you thought that they would spend so many days doing it, but then at the end of it, the child is still struggling. If I'm a teacher, then this applies for my class as a whole. I have planned 4 weeks for this topic, but at the end of that period, I'm doing a test, for example, a detailed assessment that is a test that we offer. And then I find out that my children have not learned it. So we say that in today's world, it is not necessary to kind of break up the teaching and the testing process into 2 separate buckets. That also, by the way, adds pressure to the child, because the child thinks that, okay, I have this and there's a lot of pressure of a test. One of the things in a package like Asset SUPERTEST is this, weekly test. And I must share that, I grew up in Calcutta, and I'm sure lots of schools do this, but my school, St. Xavier's Calcutta, used to do this Friday test. Thursdays used to be holidays, and Fridays we would have a test. So there was no pressure. It was like, every week I have this test. It's not like I have this huge exam. Yes, we would have an exam at the end of the year, but it achieves regularity. It also achieves, work for the child because I'm preparing regularly. It achieves feedback for the teacher. So using these methods, a teacher is able to balance, or a parent is able to balance the learning part of it, and has the child learned side of it. So that's how we see this, and we think that is a way to do it. One more point I want to mention here is that normally you'll find a child learns a topic, and then when do they take the topic again? If it's maths, they'll do it next year. If it's science also, they'll probably do it a year or two later. With something like the asset super test and computers being used in education, it is possible to revise some of these things at certain intervals. So for example, decimals is important for a child. You cannot say that, okay, I will do it 1 year later. So these kinds of things are also possible and is specifically fitted into the design of the asset super test. So we recommend these methods which kind of make learning and teaching happen and assessment happen together.
So is there some remediation that will be done? Is there something that AI can help students do as a consequence of asset super test?
Absolutely. I mean, MindSpark is the product that we have, which helps children. It's in maths, it's in English, and it is being launched in science from the next year. We also have the webinars where the MindSpark live classes, which is currently in maths. So these are offerings through which children can learn, or if you've identified topics where the child is struggling, they can get this kind of remediation. So if you're interested, you will find details of this on our website, or please write to us or call us, and we'll be happy to share details of the same.
Can I take up just a couple of more questions, Sridhar? Is that okay before we close? Yeah, so I'll take maybe the last two questions. One of it, it's about the reports that you will be giving out for asset super tests. So what will these reports exactly tell a parent?
Right. So the first thing the report would have would be the absolute score. So this is something that we always need to know. If the child has performed above the 50th percentile, it will also have the percentile score. So the relative score, what we call benchmarking, and the absolute score will be provided. In addition to this, it will have question-wise details. For every single question, it will show you how your child has done, what was the right answer, what did the child do, the percentage of children who got this right. So you get a very clear idea of how the child did and what was the, which questions should the child be focusing on. You also get, it is these tests and the details in these reports that contribute towards the points which determine which kind of a certificate a child gets. Remember, the reports also show you the results for every single attempt. So if a child has done it 3 or 4 times, you can actually see how that attempt has progressed. Did the child learn the concept as he attempted this? So all these details are provided in the report. Like I mentioned, explanations are also being added, which means that your child will have, you will be able to see an explanation for every question.
I think that really helps, but is there any free trial for these assessments? Some demo or something?
Go to the website. You can do a demo test, which is going to be available in a day or two. As of now, we do not have a free trial. We have a 4-test pack, which you can use. And like I said, based on 4 webinar participants, if you use this coupon code that shows, that is available at a very, very high discount. And this is a 4-test pack that you can take. The reason we do that is that we want the child to take the test under the test conditions and see how it feels. However, a lot of children have taken this. Most of our the registrations have been for the annual test. So we also have a lot of sample questions and a more detailed note about the asset super test on our website. It's a white paper. You can understand and read the details about this, the type of questions. And there are very detailed sample questions available for every class and subject, also available easily on the website. So you can do all those. And then if you want, try out a mini pack or go straight away for the bumper pack.
Right. I think, Prakhar, it would really help to give the link for the, getting to the asset super test along with the coupon code. And parents, audience, for whatever questions have not been taken up, feel free to write to us on email or on the number that is there on screen. If we can show the screen for the numbers again, Sridhar. We can have those questions and you can write to us. We'll surely reply to those questions, and please use this coupon code and use the link that is being shared with you. Prakhar, it would be great if you can share the link on chat also. Yeah.
Yeah. I will share. This was indeed insightful. In fact, this took me to one of my school days experience where our principal used to visit us regularly after a certain topic taught. And instead of asking us question, he used to ask us to frame certain questions and ask. And we were taught latitudes and longitudes. And one of the common questions which student asked was, sir, do latitudes and longitudes really exist? I still remember he looked at the teacher and he then looked back at us and he told us, yeah, don't step on them. So indeed an interesting discussion today. I would like to thank Sridhar sir. I would like to thank all my parents, young friends, Sudeshna, to be a part of this evening. Please keep asking good questions. Keep writing and responding to good questions. And for that, you have Asset Super Test. Any question which we haven't responded to or answered, please write to sudeshna.roy@eiindia.com. We will also post the YouTube link here. So you can carry this conversation and this discussion with you. And we look forward to see you again. Thank you so much and see you again soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks to all parents. Thanks for joining us.
I've shared the YouTube link here. Thank you, Rupal. Thank you, Mr. Ujjwal. Thank you. Thank you, Rupal ji. It indeed is a pleasure always hearing Sridhar. Yeah, I agree on this. So we'll wind up this meeting in another 2 minutes. I hope all of you have taken a note of the number and the email ID.
You can post it once more on the chat, maybe.
Yeah, if you can write.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.